two people were abducted, allegedly, according to what their family says, by a mob which included Kuki women, Kuki civilians, as well as Kuki militants. They were horribly tortured. Then they were made to stand on their knees, blindfolded, and shot behind the head. Say we have a free movement regime and we have these things. It's a very good step, very welcome step. However, even after fencing, if these areas are dominated by the Kukis only, they will create a same West Bengal like ecosystem to allow infiltrators to come.
Muslims and those classified as new cookies are largely behind most of the smuggling racket in the Northeast and as well as North Bengal.
Namaste, Ankita ji and Vladimir ji. Welcome to our channel. And we can start with the introduction from Vidya ji as usual, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, first of all, namaste, Ankita ji, namaste, Vladimir ji. So happy to have you here. So I'll go ahead. A very good morning to everyone here. Very happy to introduce our main speakers for today, Dr. Ankita Datta and Shri Vladimir Adithya Nath. Starting with Ankita ji, Dr. Ankita Datta wears many hats. She's a dedicated researcher, an avid writer, a columnist, as well as an authority of studies on the northeast of Bharat. Ankita ji, who originally hails from Jorhat, Assam, has also lived in places like Meghalaya and Arunachal Pradesh. In 2020, she completed her PhD from JNU, which was based on the traditional belief systems of the Vaishnavas of Assam and Arunachal Pradesh, with special reference to the role of the Satra and the Namghar, where Satras were led by a guru or a Satradhikar and his initiated disciples, and served as institutions of learning and neo-Vaishnavite traditions, while Namghars, that literally mean prayer house, acted as centers of religious congregations that brought together various local communities for prayers and spiritual gatherings. While Ankita ji was completing her PhD, she was also able to work on research projects based on the culture and demographics of Assam under the guidance of senior Professor Nandita Saikia, that got her to travel extensively as well as carry out intensive fieldwork. Ankita ji went on to work on a research project which was funded by Sri Harikiran Vadlamani ji's Indica or Indic Academy, and this was based on the topic Shakti worship in the Northeast, a study of Kamakhya, Jayantiya Devi, and Tripura Sundari under the supervision of author Sumedha Verma Ojha. It was during this period that she got associated with the Center for Indic Studies at the Indus University, Ahmedabad, where Ankita ji herself designed and taught several courses on the cultural civilization of Northeast Bharat. A dedicated writer, Ankita ji is a columnist for Mind Makers and has contributed almost 70 articles to the same. Currently, she is co-authoring a book along with Srimati Manoshi Sinha Raval and Shri Vladimir Adithya Nath ji. This three-part book will be titled The Manipur Conundrum, History, Conversion, and Exodus. Of this, the first section will be based on the history and civilization of Manipur and its connection to the era of the Mahabharata, the story of Arjuna and Chitrangada, the Maitai Hindus and the Bishnupriya Hindu Manipuris. This part will be written by Srimati Manoshi Sinha. The second section will cover the scenario that's post-independence as well as the Burmese invasions in the Northeast, specifically Manipur, the changes that occurred after independence, and issues such as insurgency, drug trafficking, and illegal immigration, and how these issues played out in the context of the current conflict, the demand for the separate state of Kuki Zalingam. This section has been covered by Ankita ji, while the third part of the book will be written by Shri Vladimir Adithya Nath ji. He will be looking into the testimonies of the eyewitnesses and victims, the real ground reports of the ongoing violence in Manipur. Though this book was initially slated for a December release, Ankita ji and her co-authors have had to push back the publishing of the book by a few months because of the escalating violence caused by the return of militancy as well as a similar volatile situation in Myanmar. This would enable Shri Vladimir ji to add a few more inputs into the third section of the book, and by early March, it will be sent in for printing. Coming back to our first speaker, Ankita ji, Dr. Ankita Datta. Today, it's indeed an honor to have you on this platform. Thank you so much for joining us. Moving on to our second speaker, Shri Vladimir Adithya Nath ji, who is no stranger to Satyameva Jayate. Thank you for joining us back again. Vladimir ji, which is Vladimir Adithya Nath, which is a pseudonym, took a deep interest in the northeast of Bharat, Thanks to his familial ties and frequent stays there. An engineer by profession, Vladimir ji, who originally hails from Kolkata, Bengal, started noticing and documenting the atrocities committed on the Hindus and other Janajatis in Meghalaya around 2020. Vladimir ji's main area of focus would include the changes in demography, conversions, and collection of ground reports based on the victims of these atrocities. Vladimir ji has been actively spreading awareness by writing several articles and sharing regular posts on social media about the latest incidents and lesser known facts. Currently, Vladimir ji, as mentioned earlier, is co-authoring the book, The Manipur Conundrum, History, Conversion and Exodus, along with Dr. Ankita Datta and Srimati Manushi Sinha. With authentic and valuable inputs from several genuine sources, as well as his own detailed and systematic observation, Vladimir ji has been able to compile several eye-opening reports of true incidents that must be made known to the public as well as the governments in charge. Despite facing regular threats to both life and career, Vladimir ji has persisted in his mission. It's once again an honor to have you on this platform. Thank you so much for joining us, Vladimir ji. Dr. Ankita Datta, Vladimir ji, we are waiting to listen to a very, very enlightening and a riveting discussion. Thank you so much for joining us. Over to you, Ravi.
Thank you, Adithya ji. Great introduction as usual. Before I hand over the mic, you can actually know if you want to use spreadsheets and everything, you can use it. It won't be visible to the people in Clubhouse, but it will be when we actually upload it to the YouTube. And the timing and actually discussions between Ankita ji and Vladimir ji, actually, we have already decided. So you can go ahead as planned. And I'm handing over the mic to Ankita ji. And once it is done, presentation is done, let me know, then we will start taking questions.
Okay. Namaste. Namaste, Vidya ji, Ravi Shankar ji, and team Satyameva Jayate. Thank you, Vidya ji, for that warm welcome and the humble introductory note. I'm grateful. Our gratitude to all the members of team Satyameva Jayate for inviting us to speak on this extremely sensitive and burning topic concerning Manipur and the prevailing crisis in the state, which has taken several hundreds of lives and displaced thousands of people from their homes already. But unfortunately, there does not seem any end in sight to the conflict. It is escalating every day, especially owing to the ongoing political instability in neighboring Myanmar. So without taking further time, I would first like to explain to our audience in brief the various factors that led to the violence of 2023, after which Vladimir, I'm sure, can take over and enrich it further with his valuable inputs. Now, see, what we first need to understand is the fact that there have been a series of incidences and a chain of events which eventually caused the ongoing crisis in the state. Ever since the state government of Manipur had begun taking up a series of initiatives like identification of illegal immigrants, intensification of the war on drugs, and eviction drives against illegal encroachers. So these were the initiatives of the government, of the Manipur state government, which drew strong reactions from the Kukis, from the Kuki community. Why? Mainly because of the instigation by the Kuki militants, leading to hostility of the Kukis, not only towards the Meitei community, but also various other communities residing in the state, such as the Gorkhas, the Tamil Hindus, etc. And also their hostility was clearly visible towards the state government as well. Now, see, in order to understand the current situation in the state and the way the things have been unfolding, we need to first go back into the past so that we can have a holistic understanding of the root causes of the ongoing crisis. Now see, in the past few years, for those who know Manipur, for those who have been to Manipur and are familiar with its topography and the patterns of settlement of the people, it can be very clearly observed that there has been a huge increase in the number of villages in the hill areas of Manipur. Now, most of these areas earlier happened to be the traditional settlements of the Nagas and as well as the Meiteis. But these lands are now completely under the occupation of the Chin Kukis from Myanmar, resulting in the encroachment of several hectares of land of the reserved and protected forest areas and as well as the wildlife sanctuaries. The number of recognized villages in the districts of Churachandpur, Kangpokpi, Tengnopal, and Chandel has increased in large numbers because several villages have come up in different locations of these districts over the past few years. And the problem has been accelerated by the competition to establish new villages every day in these districts so as to get access to funds from various schemes such as the National Rural Employment Guarantee Program that eventually benefit only the village chief and his relatives. Now, through various Google Earth maps, through various remote sensing maps, it has already been established clearly that more and more villages are being established in the hill areas of Manipur, especially the border districts. And the existing ones also show an abnormal growth rate of the population, especially in the districts about which I have just mentioned. And besides this phenomenon of the rapid mushrooming of new villages in the forest areas, in particular, illegal poppy cultivation, forest fires, and shifting cultivation have led to increasing deforestation and degradation of the state's forest cover. And this phenomenon of the loss of forest cover in the state, in Manipur, has been so alarming that unless timely action is not taken up, several research papers have claimed that the state will be devoid of all forests within just a few decades. I'm sure Vladimir can talk more about how the increase in the number of villages in Manipur has not only been recorded in the hill districts, but also in the valley districts. Now, coming to the most important question, who are these people? From where are these people coming and who are they? Now, see, when it comes to the Northeast, it would be wrong to assume anymore that illegal immigration is taking place only from one country, that is Bangladesh. No, there are also other countries from where illegal immigration of people is happening, and it is happening at a very, very serious rate. I remember I mentioned about this earlier also in a few of my talks. In 2021, this was in October, around 28 people from Myanmar were arrested with fake Aadhaar cards in Manipur's Tengnopal district. And incidents such as these, this is not just one incident, because incidents like these have become very, very commonplace in different places of Manipur since the past few years. In the same month of the same year, that is October 2021, 15 people from Myanmar, there was also a woman, including a woman, they were arrested at the Imphal airport. And it had later come to light that these people were trying to board a Delhi-bound flight by using fake Aadhaar cards. And even in the year 2015, the Manipur police had arrested I think 9 or 10 people in connection with 2 fake Aadhaar card manufacturing rackets. And one such racket was operating from the border town of More, and another was operating from Jidibam along the Assam-Manipur border. And these 10 people were arrested, and 9 out of these arrested people were found to be illegal immigrants from Myanmar who were involved in the fake Aadhaar card manufacturing racket. So, taking a serious note of this situation, Chief Minister Biren Singh had announced that a special checkpost would be opened at the Imphal airport for the detection of illegal immigrants. So illegal immigration from Myanmar, when we are talking about Manipur, it poses a significant real-time threat for not just Manipur, but also the Akhandata of Bharat, the unity and territorial integrity of Bharat, because of various reasons. There are potential security issues. It puts strain on limited resources, and also, of course, socio-political tensions arising from massive demographic changes. So in order to deal with this issue, a cabinet subcommittee comprising of 3 ministers, chaired by Sri Letpao Haukip, was constituted to oversee the issue of illegal immigrants from neighboring countries like Myanmar and Bangladesh. And this committee immediately began the preparations for conducting verification drives in 5 hill districts of Manipur: Kamjong, Ferzaul, Tengnopal, Churachandpur, and Chandel, which share an international, I think, a more than 300-kilometer long international border with Myanmar. And within just 1 week of this exercise, more than 2,000 illegal immigrants were detected in various districts of Manipur. And the committee also found out various new settlements established by these illegal immigrants. At the same time, the war on drugs campaign that had been going on in Manipur was severely affecting the drug cartels. The drug cartels which are being run by the illegal immigrants in the hill districts. And the massive crackdown against against the multi-billion-dollar drug cartels naturally brought about animosity against the state government. And as I have already mentioned in the very beginning, that Manipur has been witnessing a serious decline in forest cover due to illegal encroachment and poppy plantations. And this decline in forest cover is closely associated with illegal immigration, with the massive influx of illegal immigrants from Myanmar, because these people require land to settle and expand their poppy plantations. And this is not something which I'm saying from my own imagination, but these are facts, and these are facts which have been substantiated by authentic data collected through surveys, through satellite imagery and aerial surveys. So in order to address this emergency, the government of Manipur has identified various illegal encroachments, both in the hills and the valley areas, and subsequently eviction drives were carried out by strictly adhering to the law, which means the eviction drives have been carried out by issuing due notices to the people to vacate the area under Section 26 of the Indian Forest Act of 1927, and also the Manipur Forest Rules of 2021. And this move of the government further affected the drug cartels, who began to label the government as anti-tribal, as anti-Kuki. So serious concerns have been raised time and again that if there is a delay of another 5 to 10 years in addressing the problem of illegal encroachments in Manipur, all the reserved and protected forest areas of the state will be taken over by the encroachers. Now, I'm taking some time to explain this before I move on to Vladimir. Coming to the religious angle in the conflict, this is something which is very important that we need to explore and understand, because the media is painting a completely different picture. Somewhere somebody is talking something about it, that there is no religious angle or whatever. So now, coming to the religious angle in the conflict, what is the truth? There are ample proofs of how church-based Kuki terrorists have been desecrating, looting, and plundering several Hindu religious sites of worship in the Kuki-dominated hill districts of Churachandpur and Kangpokpi in particular. In the beginning of the conflict last year in May, just after a few days, a 200-year-old temple of Mahadev was destroyed using a bulldozer in the Kobro Lekha township under the Kangpokpi district administration. And the local administration had turned a blind eye to this entire episode. So there has been a well-designed strategy to destroy the places of worship and the sacred sites of the Manipuri Hindus. But most importantly, what we also need to understand is that the narrative which is often being heard of the domination of the Meiteis, the hegemony of the Meiteis in the state, from the politics to the administration. Now, is this true? This is completely wrong. And this is something which is not substantiated by any facts. Because when you see, there is an uneven representation of the different groups of the Manipuris in the Indian administrative services and as well as the Indian police services. And this is a very, very complex issue, which is a combination of several challenges and several factors. Reservation policies for the scheduled tribes, scheduled castes, and OBCs exist to promote representation of these groups of people in the elite, central, and the state services, as we all know. It has been suspected that the higher number of Kuki representatives in the administrative and the police services of Manipur eventually helped in withholding intelligence to the state government concerning the conflict that erupted in the state last year in May. Also, there have been reports, there have been instances of leaking sensitive government data, which would be advantageous in pushing the separatist narrative of the Kukis and their demand for a separate Christian Kuki Zomi homeland, or Zalingam as it is popularly known. Now, in this context, if we look into the representation of the Meiteis in the central services, that is the IS, IPS, and also the Manipur state services, the Manipur Secretariat services, we can very well see how the ratio of the Meiteis in the states, in these services, as compared to the Kukis in particular, is very low and not at all proportionate to the population index of the Meiteis. So in such a scenario, the Meitei Hindus have no future for themselves in this prevailing condition, because their representation in the various administrative services is extremely low. The situation is also extremely dangerous, especially considering the fact that a large number of representatives from one community, that is the Kukis, is there in the government services already, particularly during a conflict situation like the one which the state is witnessing at present. And last year, on the 27th of March, 2023, the Manipur High Court had directed the state government to recommend the inclusion of the Meitei community in the list of scheduled tribes. And was this the reason of the conflict? No. This directive of the Honorable High Court was made the tipping point of the violence that happened in Manipur. But the fact of the matter is that the Manipur government never acted on this directive, given the complexity of this issue. So therefore, targeting the government on this issue is not only baseless, but it also exposes a very cheap strategy to portray the government as pro-Meitei and anti-tribal or anti-Kuki, to be more specific. So to further push the hate mongering against the state government in retaliation of the eviction drives and the forest surveys that were going on, a so-called peace rally was organized on the 10th of March in the Kuki-dominated areas of the state. And this rally was an appeal to the governor of Manipur to intervene in the issue pertaining to the reserved forests and the protected forests and the extension of land revenue in the scheduled hill areas of Manipur. So this peace rally was one of the main events that began to showcase the resistance of the illegal Kuki immigrants against the government's moves on the eviction drives in the state. And as the hate campaign escalated, Chief Minister N. Biren Singh was scheduled to inaugurate an open gym at the PT Sports Complex in Churachandpur on the 28th of April. But before the inauguration could be done, before he could even reach, this sports complex was torched by the Kuki militants on the 27th of April, just a week before the crisis erupted on the 3rd of May. And a hate campaign immediately began against the Chief Minister, Biren Singh. And in continuation of this, a tribal solidarity march was called by the All Tribal Students Union of Manipur, that is the ATSUM, on the 3rd of May in all the 10 hill districts of the state, to oppose the demand for the inclusion of the Meiteis in the ST list, in the list of scheduled tribes. And this organization, the All Tribal Students Union of Manipur, said that the Solidarity March was organized to express dissent against the demands of the Meitei community for its inclusion in the ST list. But this so-called, I will say so-called Solidarity March saw the participation of several church-backed Kuki militants who were openly carrying arms, who were openly raising hateful slogans against the Meiteis. And the way things progressed over a period of time, it soon became very, very clear that it was not any peace rally, but an open call for violence against the Meiteis. Violence began in the district of Churachandpur early in the morning, where the Kuki miscreants burned down a forest beat office at Bungmual village, which was followed by similar such destruction of the forest beat offices at different villages of the same district. And along with this, the Kuki militants began burning the houses of the Meitei Hindus residing in different parts of Churachandpur district. It was only in the evening, as a reaction to these events, in the evening of the same day, that is 3rd of May, that the Meiteis reacted, and they also began torching the houses, shops, vehicles, and government quarters in Imphal West district. So before Vladimir takes over from here and I continue again, I would like to mention this one last point, that the reality behind the facade of the anti-reservation protest, there lay a web of well-crafted actions by a nexus of Kuki militants, frontal organizations of the Kukis, intellectuals sitting in some of the top central universities of this country who were peddling a fake narrative, and they still continue to do, and also politicians. The fact that even after 10 days of the outbreak of the violence, several houses of the Meitei Hindu families at the Torbung Bangla area of Bishnupur district in Imphal continued to be set on fire by the Kuki militants speaks a lot. And these houses were reburnt again after a few days. Several houses were also razed to the ground by Kuki militants in many areas of Imphal East district. So these incidents not only bring to our focus the amount of hatred harbored by the Kukis against the Meiteis, but also an extremely well-planned strategy, a conspiracy to consolidate Kuki Lebensraum or living space in several areas of the Imphal Valley and the hills of Manipur, wiping out the native population. I think I've taken quite a lot of time to explain the root causes of the conflict. Vladimir, I'm sure, will definitely have more to add to this.
Thank you, Didi, for the wonderful introduction, and pranam aap sabhi ko. Thank you very much, Vidya ji, Ravi Shankar ji, for this opportunity. One of the major causes, if we see here, are the colonial narratives which are circulating in society. You would have heard a lot of narratives here telling that this is a tribal Meitei Kuki versus non-tribal Meitei. This kind of irresponsible reporting is one of the major root causes, and it's rooted in colonial realities which does not have any relevance to ground realities. These kind of things, when we see, we have to understand that if we identify people as Janajatis, the Meiteis are also a Janajati, the Kukis are also a Janajati. So this tribal versus non-tribal narrative, first of all, that has got to go. Second thing, this thing has been portrayed as a Meitei versus Kuki thing, but whereas at least 9 communities over the last 30 years have been victims of Kuki terrorism, and at least 6 of them have faced major exoduses. So these I will come into detail a bit later, but this is also another fact which we have to understand. Now, regarding colonial narratives, you will hear a lot of cartographic manipulation or manipulation of maps telling that the hill areas are dominated by so-called Janajatis or tribals, and the valley areas are mostly occupied by Meiteis. Now, first of all, these kind of narratives are based upon colonial ideas of oversimplification and have their roots in a policy of divide and rule which was implemented by the British government in 1891 after they won the Anglo-Manipur War. So these things are this hill valley divide basically oversimplifies the geography and simply considers anything which is a hill land as a hill and the surrounding valleys are also included in it. Imphal Valley is not the only valley in Manipur. There are several other valley areas, and the height difference between the hill and valley areas is negligible. It's like declaring the top floor of a house as a part of a separate country and the bottom floor of a house as a separate country. It's that much nonsensical. In fact, to know Churachandpur, the epicenter of violence, the headquarters of Churachandpur district is located at the tip of Imphal Valley. The other headquarters, Ikau and other areas in northern Manipur, Kangpokpi area, where the violence started, their headquarters is also located at the Imphal Valley. And also note, except the major epicenters of violence, More, the Kangpokpi, Churachandpur, and the villages which now where the fighting is going on, which we will talk later, everything is in Imphal Valley. The entire fight is going on in Imphal Valley. There is no hill valley divide and there is no claim of ancestral land being taken away. It's nonsense. The Imphal Valley is the site of this, and that is one of the things which have to be clarified. Now, these colonial narratives, the biggest role in spreading these colonial narratives comes from the educational institutes. Unfortunately, the church has a stranglehold on educational institutes there, and these educational institutes have played a very pivotal role in shaping the mindset of different generations. The problem which happened after the post-merger period was that centralized remote controlled governance created an unaccountable class of local politicians and bureaucrats, which allowed the church to basically monopolize the entire education system. The monopolization of the educational system was, although the colonial government helped a lot, but that did not happen until the 60s or 70s, when they had the access all over Manipur. So these kind of things when happen, the first thing is that these hill valley divide, the disregard towards own culture, these kind of things are being taught in educational institutes, and these narratives are being circulated, which are having lethal effects. Now, when we come to these narratives, some of the examples I would like to include. This conflict, when you see it, this has the root causes of this illegal immigration and other things. These were visible from the 1950s itself, right from the 1950s. Now, whenever we are coming into these kind of matters, I would like to start with the illegal immigration cause. Illegal immigration, I would just like to add one thing. The population, the Kukis, mainly when they are coming, the Kuki term, when you see, it's an umbrella term. This umbrella term under there, it's again a colonial umbrella term, which has a lot of manipulated history and lot of things which the church also did some mental gymnastics and other kind of things to justify these kind of narratives for their own benefits. So typically in terms of Manipur, there are lots of Janajatis which are included as an umbrella and demanded to be as one people and called as Kukis. Now, among them, one Janajati is Thado. So this Thado population, if you see in 1951, it was around 8,284. By 2011, it became 2,15,000, and now the estimated population is much higher. So it is obvious that this level of population increase and this level of support does not happen without illegal immigration. Second thing, when we are observing these kind of things, happening regarding illegal immigration, we have to note that illegal immigration is very profitable in these kind of towns with these kind of states with a suitable ST population. Why? Because as the percent, according to articles 330 and 332 of the constitution, as the percentage population of scheduled tribes increases, we automatically their number of reserved seats in the Vidhan Sabha and the Lok Sabha also increases. So the number of the next delimitation when it happens, the percentage population of scheduled tribes since 1981 in Manipur was 27%. Now it has increased to, by 2011 itself, it had increased to 40.9%. So based upon the percentage, when the next delimitation happens, their number of seats is expected to, reserved seats is expected to increase by at least 5. Already there are 19 seats reserved for members of scheduled tribes in Manipur. Now, if that becomes 24, out of that, most of these reserved seats will go to the Kukis. The Kukis are now outnumbering the indigenous Janajatis, the Nagas. They have more reserved seats than them if we calculate that way. So in this case, a large-scale illegal immigration is industrial-scale illegal immigration we can observe. Not every Kukis are illegal immigrants, but a massive percentage of them are. There is no doubt about that. Now coming back to the next point, I would like to go about the religious angle. The Kukis had always used religion as a major form or a tool to consolidate their kingdom. I would like to draw your attention to two writers. One is P.S. Haukip and one is Mark Haukip. These two writers have played a pivotal role in making the thought leadership for the Kuki separate land or the Zalengam. When we talk about P.S. Haukip, what P.S. Haukip talks about land of Zalengam is that it basically includes the entire Chattogram hill tract of Bangladesh. It includes the around 2/3 of Manipur. Some maps it shows 66, some map it shows 71 around there. Let's take around 2/3. It includes large parts of Tengnopal, Kamjong, Chandel, Churachandpur, almost like a moon. It takes the entire southern and the eastern part of Manipur, basically. And it also includes some parts of Burma, the Sagaing region, the Chin state of Burma. So this kind of thing, it's a dream for all Western powers. Why? Because when they get these kind of things, it takes away the only warm water port from Bangladesh. It takes away India's actist policy towards our Southeast Asia corridor, almost like a second Pakistan it creates. And third thing, what it creates is that your Burma also loses its access to rest of the Western Gateway. And this becomes a church-controlled crown colony, because both P.S. Haukip and Mark Haukip call it a land of Christ or a country of Christ. And this purpose of demanding separation or separate administration from Manipur, like what Didi was referring to, this is very important. The church, even in Nagaland and other places, when they cannot outright portray separatism or these things, they always try to break up states with Christian majority regions from where they can dominate local politics. Dominating local politics is a major agenda of the church. It has always been like that. So these kind of things, we can observe these things, and I would highly recommend you to search this article based on it, Insurgency Northeast, the Religious Angle in Indian Defense Review. They have covered this angle very accurately from the military perspective. I won't go into much detail there. You can refer that later. Now, coming back to this matter, when we go further into these things, religious persecution in Manipur has been observed a lot. I would stick to Manipur here, but let us say one thing: the Kukis had been involved in horrible kinds of cultural genocides and horrible forms of mass murders and religious persecution in states like Tripura, in states like Assam also. So those things I will skip for now, but let's just say their crimes are not just confined to Manipur. So coming back to Manipur, these things, I would like to start from around 1970s. Churachandpur was actually considered to be the ancestral land of the Meiteis and various other Janajatis. Many of them identify themselves as individual Janajatis like Aimol and other things, and many of them consider themselves under the Naga umbrella. So Churachandpur, when we see this place, this is the epicenter of violence. We find definite presence of Manipuris from around 236 AD itself. Now, what happened was that, so there is no doubt that there are native people there. There cannot be any doubt, and their villages can be found right up to the Burmese border. That old. So that is why. So in this case, what happened was that in Churachandpur, what we observed was a systematic Kashmir-like model to drive the native out and to engineer a demographic change. What happened was that there was large-scale illegal immigration through the extremely I would say near non-existent border security. They would come, they would settle, they would make illegal villages, and the church played a major role here. They actually tried to convert Meitei Christians also, Meiteis also, or the other non-Christians also, but they accounted for the identity politics. A Kuki Christian was rated higher than a Meitei Christian. so-called Mayang Christian was rated lower than that. So this hierarchy in Christianity, Mayang means outsider. That is a common term which is used in Manipur. So this hierarchy was maintained there. And then what happened was that under such a situation, we saw a systematic attempt to deny them of their ancestral lands. Higher than market price values were offered to buy up their lands. And when we look into this Churachandpur or other areas, the people who settled in Churachandpur, particularly the Maitis, they were not economically well off. So they had a lot of problems there. They were, and under these conditions, where their survival itself was difficult, they were shut out from professional, good economic businesses, like lucrative businesses like hardware stores and other things. They were not allowed. There was horrible discrimination against their children in schools. Like, say, I would like to name some of these things, like, say, Young Learner School. It's a so-called secular name, but it's funded from an organization like the USA, from having links to that. There, the children were mandatorily forced to read Bible. Ebenezer Academy, their videos came out of child soldiers being trained. In fact, after this violence, there has been Kuki areas, there has been large-scale training and mobilization of child soldiers. One of these church-controlled institutions like Ebenezer Academy, there was training of child soldiers for these purposes. Then there was Reban School and College. Reban College got an autonomous certification, unfortunately. There are also many students, not just Maiti, even non-Maiti, other people. Also, there are plenty of eyewitness accounts of horrible discrimination in Saltbrook School and these schools, where people would be called as stone worshippers, devil worshippers. Their customs and traditions would be mocked repeatedly. Incentives would be given to them for conversion and other kinds of things. They would be discriminated in terms of scholarships and other things. Before it was digitized, their OBC certificate, even those, the small percentage which were getting OBC, that had to be renewed every 6 months. Getting that was required so much bribe due to the high presence of Kuki officials. And I would also like to include one thing regarding there. Didi was telling the low representation of Maitis in there. Understand this. A population who was supposed to have over 50% of the state, 53% according to 2011 census, although according to my estimation, it's around now 44 or 45. But let's keep it to the census value. So 53% population has only 3 top officials in Manipur police. So you will see a lot of narratives calling Manipur police as Maiti police. It's not true. They have only 3 police officers in top officers in the Manipur police during May violence out of 17 top posts. So this is the lack of representation, level of lack of representation among all these kind of things. So this has also led to a lot of legislative problems, which is another root cause, but I would stick to the religious thing first. Whenever the Kukis came, there is a thought that Zalangam came recently or it is a recent dream. No, it's not a dream. Zalangam has been a very well planned. Zalangam is their country concept, which we just discussed, that they call it Zalangam or something like land. Roughly translated, it comes free land or something like that. So this Zalangam is not a dream. This Zalangam has been there for decades, and there was systematic planning to achieve this. And this planning dates back to 1980s itself. What happened was that the illegal immigration in Churachandpur, as it started to increase, the ancestral people started to migrate. The people started to migrate from their ancestral lands. At that time, also another misconception has to be corrected. There is something like a Manipur Land Revenue and Land Act, Land Reforms Act of 1960, which tells that that only scheduled tribes can buy land in the hills and other areas. It's not as simple as that. Understand the situation like this. More than 90% of the area of Manipur is scheduled as a protected land. You as an indigenous people cannot buy land there. That is okay. You have your ancestral land there. However, there are something called district councils. That district council virtually has enjoyed a separate administration since 1971 itself. They are even allowed to impose taxes according to the legal taxable activities. They have all sorts of power. according to that 1971 Act, District Councils Act. So they are basically already enjoying a separate administration since 1971. So in this situation, when we look into this perspective, these people who are there, Maitis in these areas, they do not have any electoral representation. Those are reserved seats. They cannot stand for election. These district councils, it is impossible for them to get representation of seats in there practically. So they do not have any representation in there. If they want to buy any land anywhere, they have to get a permission of these district councils, which were not given. They could only buy land in the form of cooperatives or other things. So basically, if you lose your ancestral land once due to economic crisis or something, you have to migrate. There is impossible. You just cannot buy land in those Churachandpur and other areas. So systematically, this kind of demographic manipulation was done. And the Hindu population in Churachandpur, it fell to around less than 5% by 2011. So this majority versus minority narrative also is nonsense. Systematically, a Kashmir-like population was brought down, and then the death blow was given in 2023. So this is the thing. So whenever we look into this Churachandpur thing, also all other kinds of nasty things were done, government supplies and other things during schemes, beneficiary and other things. There, those kinds, there was all forms of discrimination, and then there were threats, bullying to try to not get them to vote. Voting there, particularly for the Maitis or even those in the non-indigenous Bharatiyas who are living there in Manipur, it was nearly impossible for them to exercise their electoral rights. They threats and other things for the militant groups. And these militant groups have used this kind of hold on these areas to act as a captive vote bank for several political parties. And these kind of things which they did, this had granted them a lot of shady decisions, which I will come to later. So coming back to these kind of things, so what we see is that a well-prepared thing was done in Churachandpur. Same thing in More, Kangpokpi, those areas. More area, I would like to cover a bit more in detail. More, the border town, is a key part of our Act East policy. This is from here it opens. Now, what we observe is that More, initially, these people came in, the population started to increase, and until 1988, it was still fine. More was a multicultural society. It had a large Tamil population, it had a large Malayali population, it had a large Bengali, Gorkha, Bihari population, their Punjabi population, with lots of festivals and other things being celebrated. It was a multicultural town. Now, this multicultural town of More was the first real problem came in around 1992. But before that, in 1988, there was a huge wave of illegal immigration and another huge wave of illegal immigration in 1967. So these waves of illegal immigration were like very huge. It was like these two waves alone are sufficient to do a major near demographic inversion. And along with that, also there were small scale infiltration and other things repeatedly going on. So when these kind of things happened, the demography of More, as it started to change, by 1992, there was an infamous Kuki Naga clash. Now, this clash, we have to understand, people keep pointing at the casualties and the woundings to say that the Nagas have imposed more casualties, so they have won the clash, basically. And a simple population transfer had taken place. The Kukis from Naga-dominated areas were driven out, and Nagas from Kuki-dominated areas were driven out. Again, we should not look at it that simply. When we look at it from a strategic perspective, the Kukis got control of the major highways, the NH2 going through Kangpokpi, which is the major lifeline, Dimapur, there, supply connecting the rest of Bharat to Manipur, and the highways through More, which is our future, our geopolitical future. So basically, in a strategic aspect, the Kukis won. They settled themselves in the key areas of Churachandpur, More, Kangpokpi, those areas. So they basically got the better of it. This population transfer, what they are saying. Then came the systematic isolation of one community after another. The Tamil population was the next victim. The Tamilians of More were a vibrant community. They had their own Tamil Sangam, huge festivals. where everybody was welcome. There was a huge temple constructed, Angala Parameshwari Mandir, in 1967. So what happened after that was that these Kukis started targeting first businessmen for extortion. Then they started abusing people. Then they started harassing people. And this led to the kidnapping of a 7-year-old child of a Tamil businessman in 1995 who was murdered later. So this created a round of violence between the Kukis and the Tamils. And this, along with the morning market closure in 1995, resulted in 80% of the Tamil population being displaced from More. The Angala Parameshwari temple was also desecrated and defiled by the Kukis, and there was horrible crimes committed against people. And so this was the next phase. Then it was the turn of the Malayalis, the Gorkhas, the Bengalis, the Biharis. And then as the Kuki population roughly reached around 50%, by the early 2000s, it was necessary for old Chamber of Commerce to the Chamber of Commerce in More to combine all communities just for survival. Because in More, the Kuki groups, particularly KNA, KNF, these kind of groups started taking over the illegal taxation and other activities where Bharatiya citizens were largely taxed by Burmese illegal immigrants or terrorists. Roughly put, in a simplified manner, every vehicle coming in or out of More was being taxed. So under these cases, forget businesses, even every vehicle were being taxed. So these kind of situation, it started creating problems between the Meiteis and the citizens and the of More and then the Kukis also. 2007 there was a major clash there because some of the terrorists tried to get substance at free, which even we see in Churatanpur from a lady's shop. So the lady protested. So local people came and protested against it. So this led to a violence in 2007. Then same thing 2015 for ILP. When the Meiteis were demanding the rally in August 2015 for ILP, there was a horrible violence there. And then comes 2023. So when we go into these kind of things, we see a series of violence and a systematic preparation for a cultural genocide, which we see here. Now, Didi was telling it was 27th April. Yes, absolutely correct. But I would like to add a couple of more points. On 27th April, there was not just the burning down of the gym. A irate Kuki mob went to the town center near Old Bazaar new area and in Churachandpur town and then started stone pelting at the police. So the police has arrested a lot of rioters in there. And then what happened was that the psychoth BJP MLA Pauline Lial Haukip, there are allegations that he went to the lot of credible eyewitness accounts say that he went to the police station and freed all these rioters on bail. This is one thing which we have to understand. The Kukis had operated irrespective of party lines. So it did not matter what party they were actually working for. So for them, their ethnicity came before national interests. And that crowd, while it was working, they smashed all the CCTV cameras there. And then on 29th April, another temple was desecrated near Churatanpur only. Then came the next thing, the burning of the forest bungalows, actually Bungmual, Matamual Tam, Saikot, then Hanglep, then Singhat. Up to 16 forest bungalows were burnt on May 3rd, and Singhat 1 is suspected to contain all the records of the illegal encroachments in forest land by the Kukis. So these things is suspected that these are actually planned incidents which pure political and strategic gains for the Kukis. These were not random crimes of passion. Then there is another thing they were telling that this is the burning of the gate, which they told Anglo Kukis rebellion gate. Now that gate ultimately has come to be proven to be an illegal structure, which was built without proper permission. So there, a couple of burning tires were placed much later than this, and these were used as an excuse to trigger this violence. And this violence spread eventually all over Manipur. The progression of violence I'll come to later. I think now I'll let Didi continue.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Vladimir, for that detailed analysis of the violence. I would just like to add just a couple of points to the illegal immigration angle that you were talking about, and how we need to look into the phenomenon, the problem of illegal immigration, not as a problem which is just confined to Manipur, but in fact the entire Northeast, and how the Kukis have unleashed barbaric violence, not just in Manipur, but also in the rest of the Northeast. Now, for this, we need to first set the matter straight. See, when we are talking about illegal immigration, most importantly, what we need to understand is that massive tampering has been done with the census data of the northeastern states, especially the hill states, the hill districts. And I was also not very much aware about this. When I was writing our book, I came across many such startling facts and revelations. There has been an unusual growth of population in many pockets of not just Manipur, but also Assam and Tripura, which can be argued to be a consequence, of course, of illegal immigration or population inflation. Now, see, if we look up on some contemporary sources like the one by Sengrang Sangma, we will find that a significant section of the Bangladeshi immigrants to Meghalaya post-partition have been Christians. In fact, a lot of Christian Garos and Khasis in Meghalaya are the descendants of refugees who had crossed the border from Memensing and Sylhet districts over the years. And the entire Northeast has been affected by the problem of improper census reporting since the early days, and this has been consistently happening time and again. I will give you the example of Manipur's Churachandpur district here. Now, Churachandpur had a higher growth rate of its population than even Bihar during the period 1991, from 1991 to 2001. The population growth rate of Churachandpur was higher than even Bihar during this period, despite most of Churachandpur's population living around the district capital. Now, if we notice the settlement patterns of the Kukis, we could clearly decipher that these people are mostly an urbanized group. And such a high rate of population growth cannot be attributed merely to natural factors under any circumstance. If we look at Aizawl, which is the capital of Mizoram, Aizawl also shows unnatural growth patterns in its population. I mean, Indira Gandhi, former Prime Minister of India, Indira Gandhi had all but a few villages destroyed, but Aizawl kept growing rapidly afterwards. So if there were large-scale immigration from Manipur, it would cause the numbers of the Chin Kukis to shrink over time. Yet it grew even in the neighboring states. Tripura's Jampui Hills area and the neighboring Damchara Tehsil as well, which was earlier Hindu majority, has now become complete Christian majority. Also, one of the major supply routes to Tripura goes through the Jampui Hills area, and the other goes through the Muslim majority Kadamtala. Similar is the case with Mahur and Maibong areas of Dima Hasao district in Assam, which have seen a rapid rise in the population of the Christians since the past few years. Meghalaya too, for that matter. The Kuki population of Meghalaya also has seen a rapid increase in the last 3 decades alone. In Mizoram, the problem is that the Kukis assimilate into the Mizo identity very easily. Like, for example, a person from the Lai community living in say Launtlai, living in the Launtlai town of Mizoram, and this person from the Lai community, he would normally identify himself as a Lai when he's in the town of Launtlai, but he would become a Mizo upon moving to Aizawl. Okay, so now these people, these same Lais are known as Hakka Chins in the Chin state of Myanmar, where they are the largest tribe. the non-Mizos, especially the Gorkhas, the Hindu Gorkhas of Mizoram, they are under immense pressure to assimilate into the Mizo-Christian identity. And many Gorkhas have eventually become Mizos in the state through intermarriage with Mizo-Christian women. Mamik district of Mizoram, which was earlier mostly dominated by the Hindu Riangs, but many of the vacated Riang areas have now been taken over by the Christian Mizos, suspected to be illegals from Myanmar. And these people, the Kukis, they have horrible infighting among themselves. The Maras, there is a community called the Maras who went to Myanmar. In Myanmar, they are called Zofechins, and they got killed. So the Maras who were living in Mizoram, they sealed the international border later. And unfortunately, how much immigration has been taking place, I mean, the scale of the immigration, we are still not able to decipher because Myanmar has not released any data on the different ethnicities inhabiting the country. Myanmar does not conduct regular censuses. In fact, the last proper census in Myanmar was way back in 1983. And if we see the demand of the Kukis for establishing a separate Christian Kuki Zomi homeland, we can see that most of the areas demanded by them are still largely inhabited by the Nagas and as well as other communities. And also not all Nagas in the Northeast are Christians. Like for example, most of the Zeliangrong Nagas of Assam, they are non-Christians. They are still Hindus. A significant chunk of these Zeliangrong Nagas in the Imphal Valley are also Hindus. And they speak, they have good fluency over the Meitei language, unlike the Kukis. But anyways, my main point was that the population of the northeastern states is hugely inflated in favor of the Christians and the Muslims. And the Kukis specifically, they have this old habit of forcing other minority communities to identify themselves as a part of their community. And not to mention about the massive census rigging that goes on. Perhaps if a digital census occurs, then states like Nagaland will half down in population overnight. Also, if we look into the fertility rates of Assam, we can see that they have collapsed rapidly among tribes like the Boros in the last few years. Also, other communities like the Ahoms, the Missings, the Koch Rajbangshis, etc., their fertility rates too are also on the declining side. The same is the case with the Brahmins as well. Gorkhas and Bengali Hindus too, they also have a very low TFR. So the indigenous population should be at least stable, if not increasing. But what we see is it is only the population of the Muslims which is expanding. Same is the case with Arunachal as well, where the tribal population is doubling after every 15 years, despite a low TFR. Meghalaya, Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, and Mizoram also, they show a huge deficit in Aadhaar enrollment than the census numbers from 2011. Sikkim's case can be understood since it has many Nepalis traveling through it, but the Christian states have massive deficits in their population. In the case of Manipur, I have a feeling that the 2024 general elections are going to determine eventually how is delimitation going to take place in the state. Also, before concluding, what Vladimir was mentioning about the Kukis, I would just like to let the audience know about this differentiation between the old Kukis and the new Kukis. Okay, that we often hear. Now, see, among the Kukis, we have the old Kukis. Old Kukis are the earlier migrants. So they include these communities like the Combs, Waifes, etc. And the new Kukis or the new migrants who came post-independence, like the Thados, the Guites, Paites, etc. The population of the district of Churachandpur, from where the conflict in Manipur first began, is almost 76% new Kuki. Okay, that is the Thados, Paites, Guites, etc. And 20% are only old Kukis and the Nagas, while the rest are non-tribals like the Meiteis, Gorkhas, Comrems, etc. And almost 62% of Churachandpur's population belongs to the three tribes, that is Thado, four tribes, sorry, Thado, Paite, Zo, and Mar. And they are also leading the separatism. The Mars, coming to the Mars, they are largely present along the Assam border. The Zos are concentrated in the Singnat area of Manipur along the India-Myanmar international border. The Paites, who are also known as Tedimchins in Myanmar, they are spread over Thanlon and the neighboring areas along the Manipur-Mizoram border, and as well as the Khuga Valley which falls under the district of Churachandpur. Now, these same Paites, they demand an autonomous council in Mizoram, but in Manipur, they demand the merger of the hills of Manipur into Mizoram. So the entire, we need to understand the topography here of Churachandpur district. See, this district is not entirely hilly. The Khuga Valley constitutes the core of the district, although it accounts for merely, I think 5 to 6% of the area, but the Khuga Valley is home to around 64% of the total population of Churachandpur. The new Kukis, they mostly stay in the plain areas and not the hills. But the old Kukis, the Nagas, and also the Komrems, they live in the hills of Churachandpur. The new Kukis, the new Kukis are the ones who exercise a social and political stronghold among all other communities of Churachandpur. In fact, when we look at the MLAs from the different constituencies of the district, they largely belong to different communities which are classified as new Kukis. Okay, so like the MLA of Tipaimuk, he is a Mar. The one from Thanlon is a Paite. In Saikot, it is a Thado. The one from Churachandpur, I think also he is a Paite. In Henglep, again, it is a Thado. So like that. And Churachandpur also has other, besides the Khuga Valley, it has other smaller valleys like Behiang, where these Kukis stay. So the population of the new Kukis in the hills of Churachandpur is meager. If not negligible, it is very less. And these people, you see, they are nomadic people. So they do not have the same values. They do not have the same cultural norms as settled people. Also, if we look at the available data from various sources, including newspapers, we can easily understand that Muslims and those classified as new Kukis are largely behind most of the smuggling racket in the Northeast and as well as North Bengal. In Manipur, the Pangals or the Manipuri Muslims, they are the most incarcerated lot for the drug trade after the Kukis. And the entire area from Naxalbari to Malda in North Bengal, adjoining the Siliguri corridor, is extremely dangerous. Most Gorkhas in India, the Nepali Gorkhas, they are from the tribal communities like Limbu, Rai, Tamang, Magar, etc. So it is very easy for these Kukis to easily pass off as Gorkhas because of their facial features if they pick up the local language of the area. I think that's all I have to say. I just diverted a little bit to make our audience understand about the gravity of the problem and how it has been playing out on the ground. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say. We can also
Didi, I think I would ask your support for another couple of matters also. But yes, I thank you for this point. It's very well elucidated. So now coming back, I would like to go to the progression of the violence and the different stages. When we see this violence from May 3rd, first was the mob violence phase. What happened? The first phase started in Churachandpur on May 3rd with the attack on Churachandpur town. And this violence spread like wildfire across More. And then as this violence started spreading, then it spread to Kangpokpi district in Kuki-dominated areas. At least 350 houses and more than 2,000 people were displaced from the Ikau, north of Dolai Thabi, this area of Kangpokpi alone. Houses were burned and people were thrown out. Laimakhong and other those areas of Imphal West area, they were driven out. Churachandpur area, more than 10 to 15,000 people, at least 15,000 people were driven out. Conservative estimates, total it's much higher, but during May 3rd to May 5th, around estimated is calculations tell about 15,000 people were driven out. More, thousands more, at least 3,500 were driven out just from the More town alone, considering the relief camp numbers. These people who were driven out, the government was a bit unprepared for them. So most of them were forced to live under horrible conditions in relief camps, had to use plastics as for eating food. Food was not regular. More relief camp, there was no water and they had to use the Khujairok river nearby for drinking. In other parts of, what to say, in Churachandpur area and those areas, the camps which were arranged in mini secretariat and other parts of those areas, there was no water and pathetic sanitation condition for months. These kind of situations persisted, and even now life in relief camp is very difficult, extremely uncomfortable for them. And the Gorkhas actually wrote a letter on June 4th that more than 63,000 Gorkha population is there in Manipur. These Gorkhas had been systematically extorted, their livelihoods had been taken away, and at least from three major parts of three districts there has been Gorkha exoduses. Under the pressure of, I would like you guys to note these terms, Sioux and non-Sioux Kuki militants. The Sioux or suspension of operations I would put as a solution and a closing argument, but this thing happened. This mob violence phase triggered a retaliation around the Imphal Valley. This retaliation started from around 8 p.m. from 3rd of May. And what happened was that during the retaliation phase, let us just be, there were horrible kinds of atrocities committed in both regions. So we all know about the naked parrot, but we do not know about the woman, Maiti woman, who was abused repeatedly by multiple Kuki youth until she was conscious. A 37-year-old mother of 3. Her story got buried. So there were innocent victims on both sides, and there were perpetrators of violence on both sides. However, any violence which happened in Imphal Valley, it happened as a retaliation. After that, what happened is that under these situations, the next phase, the violence until 5th or 6th, when the retaliation happened, the mob violence by the Kukis, which were closing into Imphal Valley, stopped on its tracks. Then it took the form of targeted killings of civilians and farmers, which have continued since then. Last 2 months, nearly from December 5th, around 28 at least people have been killed, innocent civilians, many of them horribly tortured before doing that by Kuki militants, and more than 13 security personnel have been injured. So this kind of targeted killing has been continued, but this phase started from around May 11th in Tronglaubi, where 4 police commandos were injured and a policeman were killed. Then May 12th, 10 Kuki MLAs from different groups, they stated agreement. They stated that they wanted a separate administration, and from around May 15th, without taking the no objection certificate, NOC, from the state government, they started registering their organizations to the central organizations like CBSE and other schools and other things, which they started registering. Many of these schools included those schools where the missionary agenda was being propagated and local students were mentally harassed and tortured, like Saltbrook School, Young Learner School, Ray-Ban. Every one of them was in that list. So these were done through corrupt zonal educational officers, and the Kuki MLAs were directly involved in writing letters to them and putting pressure to them. Funny thing is that Pauline Lial Haukip, these MLAs, the one who freed rioters in other things, then William David Hunching, I'll come to him later, all of these MLAs were given prime space in many national media outlets and allowed to peddle their propaganda, like where in Karan Thapar in the where. Like these media outlets gave them prime spaces. And I would like to go through William David Hunching's interview on May 27th. There he actually declares civil war, and he perfectly is willing to break up Bharat and go for that. And he actually goes on record in Where and national television, and he does it with very little retort or. Continue
Yes,
then.
go ahead.
Okay, so I'll just repeat the last line. So international media was actually present in Churachandpur from April 29th itself. So national media came much later, much later. So this matter, when we see these kind of things, the it is very clear that these kind of things were pre-planned. And all these 10 Kuki MLAs have direct or indirect links to Kuki terrorist groups. Like, say, Kim Neo Hansing, an MLA was photographed clearly in the poppy fields, opium fields, while enjoying. Her husband, William David Hansing, is the head of Kuki People's Alliance, and Kuki People's Alliance has been allegedly involved in several kinds of terrorist activities. And all of these MLAs, they tried to portray themselves as a vote bank for the central government, and they even wrote a letter. The UKLF, an umbrella group of 17 Kuki UG groups, who wrote to Ram Madhav and Himanta Vishwa Sharma saying that we allowed you to win the 2017 and 2019 elections. So why are you not fulfilling our demands? These kind of things. Obviously, that letter was later denied by Himanta Vishwa Sharma, that nothing like that happened, but they at least wrote a letter like that as a pressure strategy. Now, coming back to this situation, these 10 Kuki MLAs declared these things. Then 27th April, 27th May, William David Hansing declared this kind of basically a civil war declaration, and on 13 villages were targeted, and it intended to cut off the supplies of food and essentials to the valley. And this strategy of starving people of essentials, food, and these medicine, these things have been continuing repeatedly. Heavily, trucks are being extorted, 25 to 30,000 rupees for each truck. This is a more than essential prices have gone up more than 30%, and many of the trucks have to pay more than double the extortion. Trucks carrying consumable goods are being charged 75 to 80,000 each truck there. So this extortion racket is creating a menace for economic recovery all over this. This extortion racket goes beyond Manipur, but the increase in the extortion racket due to this crisis is creating a major crisis there. And the involvement of Kuki groups in these extortion rackets and cannot be rolled out. They are not the only ones doing it, but their role has been also visible in this racket. So the medicines worth 50 lakhs one time, medicinal equipment were burnt out, and these kind of horrible things were committed. Now, these things after that phase, this violence and attack, the town of Serau was put under siege. Serau, Sugnu, and other things at the edge of Imphal Valley, at the southeastern edge of Imphal Valley, was put under siege for a week. The freedom fighter S. Churachandji's wife, Ivetombi was burnt alive. A Gorkha person, 58-year-old, was allegedly burnt alive. Horrible kinds of atrocities were done. More also on May 3rd, according to Joydeep Mujumdar's ground report, a dozen people were killed, and old woman was locked up in a home and burnt alive. So these kind of horrible things happened, atrocities. Teenagers were kidnapped and shot. People were Khoirom Romario, he was burnt alive with a blowtorch. These kind of things. Totally, it's very difficult. Then Hey Guru Jam Robinson Singh, he was killed and his parents were called to mock and taunt them. Then these kind of stories also should come out. I mean, basically these things did not come out. Lintho Inambi and Hemanjit, these two teenagers murder. Then Chinkhe Nangba, two of the students in two people were abducted, allegedly, according to what their family says, by a mob which included Kuki women, Kuki civilians, as well as Kuki militants. They were horribly tortured. Then they were made to stand on their knees, blindfolded, and shot behind the head. And one of them, equipment used for digging ground was used to pick apart their skull. So these kind of atrocities can happen, the horrible kind of things. So with these things, we have to understand that the violence which is going on, the Kukis have achieved most of their objectives. They have put the Meiteis in a stranglehold, and even the other communities in there, including the non-indigenous people. The Meiteis now have 44% people living in less than 6% of habitable land. The land prices itself will drive them out of Manipur within the next 6 years, or within the next 20 years, unless these kind of sweeping legislative reforms do not come. Equal rights are not given to them, because currently, even in Imphal Valley, if a Janajati person basically settles somewhere, it becomes tribal land. Basically, it's gone. To buy it is very difficult. Like, until 2022, you had to get the DC's permission. Only with the DC's permission you could get it. So these kind of things were very difficult. So that is what created this kind of problem. I would just say conclude with one thing: the suspension of operations agreement is one thing which has created a major problem. The suspension of operations agreement basically grants these Kuki terrorists immunity, 25 Kuki groups immunity from state and central government operations. However, they are not allowed to recruit, they are not allowed to do any kind of extortion, violence, or these kind of activities, and they are supposed to stay in designated camps, and they are supposed to keep their weapons in a double locking system. However, and they are paid a salary of around five. Previously, it was 5,000 rupees. Now it's supposed to be around 6,000 rupees from our taxpayer money per month. Now, each and every terms of this have been violated dozens of times, at least. It's with sickening frequency. Murders, extortion, attack on water supplies of villages like Kurkul and other areas. They blew out pipes supplying water to villages, creating major problems, those kind of things. So all kinds of forms of, all possible forms of crimes against humanity which can be seen, this has been done. However, the government has not yet removed this SU agreement. Why? Because of two reasons. One is the Shiliguri corridor, which we have there. The alternative to it is being created, something known as the Kaladan multimodal project, 3,200 crore thing. Now, this Kaladan multimodal project is under threat. The Arakan army and the Chin Kuki and the Kachin and these alliances, which the civil war currently is going in Burma, these coalitions are actually attacking these things and trying to attacking these the junta, and our investments there, as well as the More part, is under threat, our future trade routes. So this is what has created a major problem. And I would also like to add one thing before that. This blocking of this More region had been going on since 2016. Hundreds of illegal villages like Haulenfai, Minao, Molcham, Yoldam, Sahe, Lianfai, all along in strategic locations, they had been installed and they had been filled with combat veterans from Burma for years. This was a very well planned thing to block off our Act East policy and use it as a bargaining chip against the government. So, without a huge amount of national pressure, we cannot expect very stern action against them. But this thing can affect our future geopolitical interests and our national ambitions too, what the Kukis are playing with. And just for a thing, they had approached all kinds of foreign nations, put our military details, like in a letter to Israel on 30th of June, they published every single detail of our military officials who were on duty. They called our state as a fascist state and called the people as a genocidal people, and all kinds of horrible kind of allegations they had put. Then they had also approached Olaf Scholz. Then they had in Germany to intervene. They had also approached the Khalistanis. They had also approached Pakistanis, had also come out in their support. So all kinds of anti-national forces they have hired their services to. So this matter, it is an extremely serious thing. And regarding the religious matter, I would finally say 393 temples and Divya sites have been desecrated. Thanjing, the divine home of Ibudu, Thanjing and Mahadev, that place has been desecrated thrice with crosses, repeatedly. And the third time, there was a videographic evidence of pastor being present, accompanied by militants, armed with AK-47 and other things. So I would just say one thing. Let us have a lot of concern for this and pressurize our leaders, because civilians should not be are not supposed to pay taxes to foreign terrorists and face artillery in a country without any repercussion, and be paid from our taxpayer money, these terrorists. Thank you.
A very, very simple question to both Ankita ji and Vladimir ji. Do you think this conflict would be coming to an end anytime soon? From your observations and calculations, what do you see?
It is definitely going to take some time for the situation to normalize. That's the least I can say. But yes, there have been some positive and welcome developments on the ground, like the recent the decision by the Union Home Minister on the cancellation of the FMR regime, the free movement regime. So initiatives such as these are definitely welcome. And what Vladimir just concluded by saying about the SU agreement. this is something which is very, very extremely important to address by the government at this moment of time. I think Vladimir also can add more on this.
I would say it would take at least 10 to 15 years to address the root causes, because what we see practically is that NRC or other things, they do not work if the society is not strong enough to enforce it. Government alone cannot do it. Say we have a free movement regime and we have these things, it's a very good step, very welcome step. However, even after fencing, if these areas are dominated by the Kukis only, they will create a same West Bengal like ecosystem to allow infiltrators to come. So there are two solutions. Either you have a buffer zone of say maybe 20-30 kilometers which cannot be overcome in the dead of the night, one thing, or you can have a second, what to say, native people moving in there or other non-indigenous Bharatiya people settling in there and spread awareness campaigns. A large portion of it has to be creating alternatives to church controlled education and healthcare centers there, which can only be done with long-term investment to address these colonial narratives. As long as this hill valley divide is there, today it is Kukis or some, yesterday, tomorrow it will be some other Janajati or some other extent. The church will be able to use them for their own purposes. So this hold has to be broken. So this is a long process. Also, the Sioux agreement has to be addressed. There are other factors also, legislations like the 1960 Manipur Land Revenue Land, this act has to be addressed. It has to be seen whether really the district council should be given that much sweeping power according to 1971 thing, because abuse of that power has been prevalent everywhere. These powers had been abused to engineer a demographic shift in accordance to suit the agenda of the church, which in turn suits the agenda of several foreign countries. So these all things have to be addressed. But one matter which is, without national pressure and national coverage, these kind of central policy reforms will be very difficult. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ankita ji and Vladimir. I will go to the first question from the audience. Plural, go ahead.
Hello, namaste, namaskar, everyone. Hey, Rahul. Hey, Ravi Shankar ji, Vidya ji, and the gentleman who spoke so beautifully, and RDG, namaste. I have a quick question. Maybe in two parts, I'll summarize it. One is, if the leadership of minority communities is a nominee of a sovereign nation state, for example, Vatican, then should we then look at these communities' leadership effectively as a high commission? That's the first question. Second question is a follow-up on that. What do we know about the funding that comes from overseas, and what are the different interest groups that are heavily funded in this region?
See, whenever we are talking about addressing it as a high commission or a religious head of a minority institution, first of all, I think we should define minority properly. The minority, how much is it? Is it 5%? Is it 1%? What is actually a minority? A 49% is not a minority. And second thing, I would take this question in this way. Institutions which have foreign roots and which are doing foreign agendas, should they be treated as a foreign embassy type of thing with that kind of precaution? I'll take this question as this kind of way. In that case, I would say 100% yes, because the church has systematically engineered hatred against indigenous community. There are plenty of proofs of that. I think the book will address all of these things. So in this case, I would just come to this point that whenever we are having this church kind of things, they have done horrible kinds of atrocities. Molestation of women performing Cherauba festival in 2010 happened in Thanjing. Then all kinds of hate-filled narratives, preventing people from going to their sacred places to do rituals, land grabbing, rampant land grabbing. Some districts, small areas alone, 60 churches have cropped up as these kind of things. So obviously, precautions should be there. These kind of excuses should not be used. Now, regarding funding. So regarding funding, it is very difficult to address that the church has funded. There has been plenty of evidence of Zomi churches from Myanmar, the Oasis Society from societies like the Oasis Society from UK and some other Zomi churches from US giving money to Kuki organizations and CSOs. There has been an actual documented site of organizations from Israel not church based, but organizations from Israel actually donating 3,90,000 rupees to ITLF for drone department for actually conducting war against indigenous citizens. So all of these transactions, whether they have FCRA norms or not, that is a question, and which people have been asking a lot. But it is highly likely that these transactions are going on without FCRA notification, and all of these are illegal. So this is one matter which can be addressed. Now, regarding other matter of fundings, see, there was 70,000 crore drug economy, which is much, much bigger than the GDP of Manipur. In fact, it's nearly as big as the GDP of Manipur, Nagaland, and Mizoram combined together. It's smaller than that, but still, it's still not that much smaller. So they have a huge amount of source or a fund source already present, but yes, the church has significantly supplemented it, but it's very difficult to prove that these things are going to anti-national activities or war, because these funds which are given are mostly given in the name of providing relief or making houses. So we can only speculate. Except that one ITLF instance, we cannot prove much.
Adi, go ahead.
Am I audible, Ravi?
Yes, you are.
I think so.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, thanks, Satyameva Jayate team. Thanks, distinguished guests for the wonderful presentation. So, sir, my question is, during your presentation, you compared Manipur, the northeast, entire northeast area with Kashmir, and you said that the entire situation is very grave related to the demography and all. During the Manipur violence, I happened to come across a web portal called Factly, where they said that with the graph and all, they detailed the entire situation and said that in their the web portal, the exact word is security-related incidents and casualties in Northeast India decreased substantially in last 2 decades before Manipur violence. And they mentioned the reports in corroboration with the Ministry of Home Affairs data. So how come there is a vast difference between what you presented right now and the details in the Ministry of Home Affairs? In that web portal, they put the data from 2001 to 2021 security-related incidents in Northeast Indian states, and another graph is there, number of security forces killed in Northeast India by state from 2001 to 2021. So are you saying that just like Kashmir, many of the incidents were not being put into public, or is there a manipulation in the data? Can you please clear on this issue?
Excellent question. I would like to take a bit of time to address this. This is an excellent question. So first thing is that you have to understand, between the 80s and the 90s, there were 3 insurgencies going in Manipur. You were covering the entire Northeast, but I'll confine it to Manipur because entire Northeast would require me addressing at least 8 major insurgencies, which I think is beyond the scope of this discussion. So I'll keep it confined to Manipur. See, between 1980s and 90s, it was a very dangerous situation with over 50 insurgent groups operating in Manipur from 3 different communities. Kukis were there, Nagas were there, the Meitei insurgency was there. So the casualties were horrible. There were 3-pronged casualties. What happened was that from 2012, the insurgency in the valley died down. Churachandpur itself, 2000 itself, these insurgencies died down. The Manipuri insurgency died down, basically. They went into the mainstream. Mostly they looked for scheduled tribe demand and other things for them, for securing their Imphal Valley and other things. They started to choose constitutional ways because they got their trust back, that thing. So this is a major count that why the AFSPA was removed from Imphal Valley, because there were not major incidents happening there. Most of the militants were hiding in the hills and doing these activities. That is why AFSPA was never removed from the hills. Naga insurgency. The NSCN finally signed the peace accord. So the Naga insurgency also went away. Now regarding the Kukis were actually planning a different game. They were doing these kind of things. What the incidents were covered up was that the extortion. I would like you to search this thing, Shoibam Shongita, young girl's testimony from Churachandpur. The horrible persecution and demographic engineering and other things which happened. The state government on March this year itself, they attempted to throw out the Zomi Revolutionary Army, ZRA and other groups out of the SOUF for precisely this reason. they were actually using this demographic engineering. So the Kuki groups actually, after they got the suspension of operations agreement in 2008, they planned and engineered loopholes in there. And those loopholes, they utilized it. Even now, you will see they are systematically targeting only the Manipur state security forces, not the central security forces, because this does not suit their narrative. So that is why I am telling this is not even an insurgency. This is the declared and planned war against the state of Bharat, because this is being carried out in a very well planned manner, which is frankly beyond not possible without major international support. So the numbers reduced because two insurgencies were gone with peace accords. And third thing, the third insurgent group, basically, they were adopting a different approach to it. I hope that answers your question.
So one more thing. One more thing. The report itself says that the number of civilians the killed in Northeast India also is reduced. Can you confirm that? Is the number of civilians attacked because you have mentioned in your detailed discussion that the civilian attack is the discrimination against them, the loss of life has been increased. So can you explain that also, please?
Yes, the civilian attacks by militants or terrorists doing bomb blasts, doing targeted attacks had been reduced. However, the rampant extortion, the discrimination, the demographic engineering, the othering of Bharatiya people in their own ancestral land and other Bharatiyas in Bharat, these things did not reduce. These things, in fact, only increased in places like More and other things. So what happened basically, the instead of doing overt killings and these things, they moved into subverting civilian rights, law and order problems, before giving the blow.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Manipur.
Thank you, Adi. I have a
Ravi, you're on mute.
Yeah. I have a question that came through the back channel. Let me read it out. Okay. So the question is, it is believed that the change of religion, that is evangelical influence after 1970, has now brought about the ongoing turmoil. This question came in as the discussion was going on, the presentation was going on. I'll read it out again. Is it believed that the change of religion, that is evangelical influence after 1970, has now brought out the ongoing turmoil? That's a very straightforward question, pointed question.
Yeah. Whenever we consider evangelical, I'll just give you the influence of the evangelical church. Okay, not just the evangelical church, there are hundreds of denominations, Baptist church, other thing. I'll just club them down as a church for ease of understanding. So what they did was that they provided the thought leadership, creating these artificial umbrella identities, like say Kukis, even these things. These artificial umbrella identities are based on colonial narratives. Now, who circulates these colonial narratives in young mind? The church, through its biased sermons and educational institutes. Then, who provokes these polarization in society, portraying non-natives as others or heathens? The church. So they keep another form of hatred in there. Now, who keeps these kind of who promotes identity politics based upon colonial lines? The church. So obviously the church has played a major role in thought leadership in these matters, and also church is a major beneficiary of breaking Manipur. Let us not forget that. If these parts, say Churachandpur, Chandel, Tengnopal and Kangpokpi, these districts break up, so the basic major in routes and out routes into Manipur and out of Manipur comes in a Christian majority so-called state where the church can dominate local politics. And also our activist policy, the church has a stranglehold on this. So they have a major benefit in here. And again, that is why they are getting so much foreign support, because foreign societies see a real opportunity of building a crown colony. I'll tell you one thing. The Burma attacks which are going on, after that, I'll just tell one number. Since 2021, by conservative estimates, 53,000 refugees have entered Bharat from Burma. Since this Burma crisis, according to conservative estimates which UN tells the report, 200,000 people has been displaced. And in India itself, we have got at least 11,000, 6,000 in Kamjong in Manipur and also in Mizoram, and very conservative estimates, 11,000 refugees have entered since November. So the numbers are astronomically increasing. That is more than 40,000 Rohingyas in one go, that is within 2 years. So these kind of things are happening. And I would also like you to look at the Chin state in Burma, how easily the missionaries are advertising their conversions. Twitter is full of these kind of things. So basically this crown colony narrative creation, and ironically, the Abrahamic alliance is there. The Rohingyas are forming a major part of these anti-junta or anti-Tatmadaw forces also, with these ethnic groups which are fighting in Myanmar. So this kind of narrative is totally going on, and church is a major glue which binds these coalitions together. So rest, I think you can conclude whether it is, I would say it is not the only factor here, but obviously it has major factor.
Thank you. Before going to Bhairav, Plural, I have given you an invitation. You can come up. Bhairav, go ahead.
Well, I was invited. I had written most of the things that were going in my head on the comment section. But see, one thing I would want to say that we know this, and I mean, all the people here and a lot of people all across India know this truth, that what is happening on the geopolitical level, how the Abrahamic faiths have a common cause running for centuries. And it's still there, and it's quite evident when we connect the dots. So when we talk about the action, I personally feel that peaceful action and waiting for something to happen or some miracle to happen to deal with these things is not going to bear any result anytime soon. We'll keep on waiting, and maybe if the government changes, then the situation will be completely different, and who knows how the geopolitical scenarios would play, and the big powers are all across the world would play into our own politics, because this is the only country left to be to be precise, I mean, which is fighting, which knows the truth and which is fighting against it. The rest of the countries, I don't think any other country is left. So it's a much bigger war that is going on, and maybe forming a community and bigger community and keep on growing that community would be one way, but definitely some form of aggression and needs to be shown. Otherwise,
I think we can put it like what could be done to mitigate the current situation over there, and what of a solution is possible. Vladimir.
I would keep this solution as a simple factor for people who are not from Manipur. If you wish to put concrete set of demands, what you should demand for. First thing, you should demand for full-scale against Kuki terrorists and their sympathizers. The sympathy which they are enjoying from the society is unbelievable. And to a large extent, that comes because it's a very top-heavy society. That's what makes them a very useful tool. If you are living in a Kuki village, you do not have any land rights. All of your lands are owned by the village chief. So that is what makes individual voices or sane voices coming very difficult from there. So this is one thing. Second thing is that we should demand is biased legislations like Article 371C, Manipur Land Revenue and Land Reforms Act. Anything which divides upon false geographical notions, like all kinds of separatist groups or terrorist groups in Manipur project the Manipur as the Imphal Valley as a central bowl and a ring around as the hills. I was shocked to see the national media portraying the same map as Nagalim, Kuki land. These people also show these same kind of narratives. So I was actually shocked to see these kind of narratives going in national media. So colonial influence and hill valley divides have to be addressed. These kind of things. For that, two things have to be demanded. Healthcare institutes and educational institutes the church monopoly has to be broken. Cheaper alternatives must be given with large subsidies from the central government and in consultation with all forms of experts, including experts like Ankita ji, for who understands what needs to be taught and what needs to be. People like Govind Sadashiv Ghuri, a very famous sociologist, say that we need to bring them back into Sanatan fold. However, I am nobody in front of them. I actually, okay, I will just say like this way. You just need to remind them of their roots. There is no need to even bring them back. So if this job is done, this is second thing. Creating alternatives for educational institutes and healthcare centers, church control, these things. And there has to be awareness campaigns against colonial narratives. Third thing, legislative reforms at the state and central level, including these things. There were lots of gadgets like Kuki. I did not get the time to tell this in the main presentation. The Kukis, like these, they portrayed any Kuki tribe as an indigenous Janajati of Manipur, as a scheduled tribe in Manipur. The problem is that there are several Kuki tribes living in Burma or Myanmar. These kind of gadget notifications have to be challenged. These Burma and Myanmar, the Kukis who are living there, they are belonging to Kuki tribe, but they are not Indians. Citizenship and ethnicity is different. They come in here, they get ST rights. So that is also a big incentive for conversion, in addition to reserved ST seats with delimitation. So these kind of things benefit them. So these gadgets have to be challenged as a part of this law, central as well as state level. And finally, the fourth thing which I would say is that there has to be a skill gap analysis properly done. Manipur economic reforms and other things, building it up, it's very good, but there has not been a decent skill gap analysis done for a very long time. So these things also have to be done, a skill gap analysis. And fifth thing, stage by stage plan to stop highway extortion. This highway extortion not just involves Manipur, it involves other states also. So this is a huge racket which has to be addressed. I would say these five are the major demands which, if we give, we can slowly claw back the situation.
Thank you, Bhairav, for that question. Thank you, Vladimir. Plural, you can go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Raviji. And thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for helping us understand this. I'm here to learn, like the rest of them. I hail from the world of consulting, so we do due diligence on any industry that we're looking to disrupt. But typically, we look at identifying the different stakeholders, do a value chain analysis, who's producing, who's doing the R&D, who's doing the distribution, what's the funding ecosystem like, who are the key organizations, what are the key figures, what is their stated position, that kind of a complete industry analysis. So we understand the other before we go and we map out the vulnerabilities and have a concerted effort to solve the big problem. Now, I have two queries in that spirit, if I may submit. One is, do we have a due diligence on the Northeast, considering everything that you've so eloquently articulated? Is there a single document that the rest of us can read into, spend some time and learn from, which will encompass all these different stakeholders, names and ideas and organizations and whatnot? Secondly, what is the end game as far as we are concerned? Consequently, if you've diagnosed the problem, what is the end game for us and how do we get there? Thank you very much.
Before I answer that question, I have a question. Do you mean just the documents regarding the finance studies and financial condition of Manipur, or do you want a document encompassing all these matters?
We'll be much grateful for any, but generally speaking, the latter would be more powerful for us from a learning perspective, sir.
Then I will add some things more in the book. Maybe the release will be delayed 1 or 2 weeks. The book you can use for that. I'll add that. Regarding finance thing which you were telling, I think you have a good professional thing. You can approach the finance commission reports of Manipur during the last recent years. It's available online. You can get a very clear idea of what industries are there, how much produce they are doing, and what they are working. You will find the major production industries which had been affected badly at the agriculture thing due to poppy cultivation and poisoning of rivers and other things due to the use of these herbicides in poppy, leading to large-scale cancer and other kinds of problems. This is one thing which is negatively being affected, which was traditionally a powerhouse thing for Manipur. So this has created problems. And the silk farming sector is quite good. That is one of the major things, textiles and those things which they are working on. These things you can find there exactly which is going on. But again, I am telling, if you are trying to work with that, I would recommend you get in touch with government officials or sometimes come in the Twitter spaces of Manipur things. You will find some people, they are conducting regular Twitter spaces every Friday and Saturday. Just search for them. I'll send you some IDs if needed privately. They will bring you in contact with people who are actually planning to do the skill gap analysis, because what people understood there is that without a proper skill gap analysis and without these highways being cleared, it's nearly impossible to bring delivery based things there. So, and also service based matters and other things they are addressing, they are looking into it. Many think tanks are looking into it, like Rami Desai and others. So these things are also going on. So I would recommend you get in touch with them also. I will try to give you as much context as possible. If you're willing to work, that is very good.
Vidyaji mentioned that you have one or two questions more.
Yeah, this is a completely unrelated topic, but again to do with Manipur only. It was the most recent, the Ayodhya Ram Mandir. When it came into being, Vladimir ji, was there any kind of an impact on the Manipur conflict?
Yes, people were very happy on the Manipur conflict. But one of the major things which was done, actually campaigns were done there. T.R. Ramesh ji, J. Deepak ji, Anand Ranganathan ji were tagged repeatedly and told to add the 393 plus mandirs and divyasthans of Manipur to the 40,000 things which are supposed to be reclaimed. Because many of these divyasthans are more than 2,000 years old. And these have long documented history known as puyas or sacred texts, which are there. We have documented history there, primary sources. So that is being done, but still, unfortunately, we did not receive any reply. So that is one of the things which was major things. But yes, people were happy because this is considered to be one of the first, what to say, reversals the abrahamics had faced in, at least in the legal field, for many years.
Vladimir ji, when is the book will be coming out? When we can have the book? There are people talking about it in the comment section. So
yeah, within 1 month it will go for printing, and after printing, I think you will have to ask Manushi ji or Ankita ji, because they are frankly the intellectual experts, and I am very glad that they actually allowed me to tag along with their work. So I am mostly the one collecting reports and trying to work on the ground and trying to help people in that way, doing drives, helping victims get things. And yes, one more thing. If you guys can actually help, one more matter is that the compensation matter. Despite repeated insistence of the National Human Rights Commission till November, what last reports, not a single victim has received a single penny of compensation until then. So this is also putting a huge burden on the people to thrive these things. So in this matter also, maybe we can put as a demand, but I wouldn't put this as a demand, because demand should be wide encompassing. This is just a very specific thing, but again, this is something which is further complicating the problem.
Yeah, I guess mostly from my end, most of the questions have been already answered. I think in the course of the conversation, most of what I had meant for them. Just one question, Vladimir ji, because this is something personal. See, since you have been on the ground, you've been a ground activist. What are the kind of challenges that you faced personally, and people along with you have been facing? People need to know the kind of sacrifices that you've been making. So please do let us know about that too.
I would not call it sacrifice. Saving your identity is not sacrifice. We have to prioritize and give some time to it. Whenever we are going for ground report, two things we have to be very clear in this matter. One is, we will see a lot of emotional stuff. We will see a lot of horrible things. In fact, I did not go into much of it for this reason only, so that we have a broader view of it. One thing which we are lacking is that we are lacking proper collated data which cannot be challenged for all of our persecutions and atrocities, like the church does, like the leftist does. They may lie openly, but at least they lie in a sophisticated and cultured manner. In many of these cases, like the Ram Mandir documentary the Wire brought out, one side is shown, other side is not shown. These kind of things. But even the truth, if we are telling, we have to work hard and we have to keep very clear data, exactly how many people died, exactly how many houses were burnt, when it happened. These kind of things, even if we do not put it in a book for lack of readability or other concerns, these data should be there, and these data should be used as actionables in future. So this is one thing, our vision should be very clear, first thing. Second thing, when we are going for ground reports, it is very crucial to collect ground reports during the initial days of crisis. Time is very critical because as time goes on, the victims' memories get diluted. So these things can create future problems if you are using for group court and other things. Third thing, commissions and other things can give recommendations, but however, these recommendations are not very strong for justice. Government can keep it on hold for many years. So it is very important that FIRs be filed. Kashmir, and one of the major problems was that FIRs were not filed. In Manipur, at least everyone had been very clear about filing FIRs, and because of these many numbers of FIRs, tens of thousands of FIRs, over 10,000 FIRs, I think, the Supreme Court had actually ordered affidavits of victims. So these victims' affidavits will be documented in the Supreme Court, which cannot be manipulated, which cannot be destroyed. After that, then these can be used as reference by hundreds of people. Ravi Shankar ji, you can write. Vidya ji, you can write. Maybe people with better oratory or writing skills than me or others. So this kind of primary source creation is very important. I think more than the challenges, I would say what to do is very important. We should not get carried out over by emotions and simply just write single stories and then keep it away as articles. No, it should encompass a proper sequence and keep these things in mind.
Thank you. We have two more questioners actually on the speaker panel. The first one is Tomahawk. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning, panelist. Hi, good morning, Vladimir sir. Am I audible?
You are. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll just make it real quick. Okay, yes. I'm not sure if the question is of any relevance to the topic, but I think it's of some relevance. But yeah, let me ask that question. So, I mean, recent days, I mean, it's been like a couple of years. I've seen a trend. Especially in South India, that Hindus are siding with the conservative Christian groups, to curb the global issue of Islamic jihad. And I'm pretty sure that the South Indian Hindus are still oblivious to the fact that even the Christians are carrying out their silent form of terrorism. And still a lot of education has to be imparted so that these people will be more aware that Christians aren't, any good either. I mean, especially the conservative groups. I totally agree that, we people should unite and, tackle this global cancer of Islamic jihad. But again, this is like putting out fire with fire. I mean, siding with the Christian conservatives won't do any good to Hindu community. So even in Clubhouse, I can see that even, there are certain Hindu groups where we can see panelists who are essentially from the Christian background, modding the sessions and, talking about Sanathanism. I take it as with a pinch of salt. I don't visit those rooms. So what do you think, sir? Like, is that a good thing happening?
His opinion about what you have mentioned. Yeah.
I will take it a bit more. I will say what we need to do from my very limited experience, because it's again another excellent point. What we have to do is that as a society, what we need is or what I don't. It doesn't has to be sanस्थas working for the welfare of people and creating a base. See, whenever you need political reforms, you need votes. You need people congregating. So mandirs as a center of welfare and congregation has to be there. And the primary demand in South India for all Hindus, I think, should be Mandir Mukti. That is number one. There is no question about it as a central demand. Besides that, I would give you two guidelines. Anything which gives you, which law which gives special rights against you, whether it is minority or whatever, it does not matter. Any special rights against you should be vigorously challenged. And these, I think, you will know better than me, the local people, what local laws are against you. National level, we know Waqf, HRC, Places of Worship Act, these we can spread awareness. But Hindu sanस्थाs, if we have lakhs of those Hindu sanस्थाs working all over Bharat, what happens? Our reach will be more. We will be able to influence people on the ground. We will be able to give them welfare there. And then in that case, it will work a lot. Now, when making Hindu sanस्थाs, the biggest problem is that the funding comes issue-based and not a systematic funding. So these systematic funding matters should also be addressed very carefully and very well. And third thing, regarding the Christian things, I would suggest that the more scholarship has to be done, because frankly speaking, in Northeast, there has been 79, 87, 90, 92, at least there are more than dozens. There are more than a dozen mass murders committed by groups which had the church as a logo. And there had been several insurgency movements, including one led by Fizo in Naga movement, where it was Country for Christ. And Fizo got citizenship and shelter in which country, guess? Britain. And who fought his case? A pastor. So there are plenty of materials and plenty of evidence available. These things have to be written. See, whenever we are working for it, the manpower has to work two ways. One is produce very good quality of scholarship work focused on data. And second, what we have to have, because more than graphic violent stuff, we need data which can be presented to the majority public. And second thing, or even young people if possible. And second thing which we have is that we have to connect with our nearby mathas, mandir, sampradayas and strengthen them. And also and use them as Hindu sanस्थाs for welfare. If they are not working for it, then we need to encourage people to open their own sanstha to work on ground so that these words go. This should be the way I think you should follow anywhere, not just in South India. And South India, one more specific thing I would say, if you have lots of your local devatas, right? Like Karupusami and other things, you have that, right? In Tamil Nadu and other places. Those sites, reverence for those sites and local devatas, keep it. They are no ways against Sanatan Dharma. We have polytheism, we have these acceptance, these things have to be promoted. Identity politics at any cost should be discouraged. This is one of the biggest weapons in whenever you are dealing with the church. Do not let them get into identity politics. What they will do is that they will break your society by creating separate identities for each people. They will identify who are less meritorious class and give them an identity and try to, and become their champions. These things, these have to be done. So it has to be worked both way. Thank you.
Thank you, Tomahawk.
Thank
The Meitei heritage is the next questioner. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you to Ankita ji and Vladimir for this excellent, perspective. I just had a suggestion, not a question, rather. So, one of the most important thing that I think both Ankita ji and Vladimir mentioned is the positioning that the narrative war that they have fought, the Kuki Joe has fought over the last 9-10 months. One thing that I wanted to precisely highlight, and I'm not sure if that was covered in the initial remarks, back in 1960s, when the first immigration from Myanmar started, there was an official association of refugees. So they used to call it the Burmese Kuki Refugees Association. Now, on the basis of that, they had sought rehabilitation fund, and the member of parliament at that time, Mr. Hawkip, I'm forgetting his first name, I think he wrote a letter to the government of India, and a fund of around some 3,20,000 was granted. Now, why this is important is because initially there was a formal organization that used to work for the rehabilitation of the refugees, and they used to put numbers around 1,500 at that point of time. There are other reports which say one article by Pauline and Hawkip, wherein he puts the number at some around 57 to 60,000 at that point of time. The most important point is, where has this Burmese Kuki Refugees Association disappeared? And now it is being led by what is called as the Indigenous Tribal Leaders Forum. Now, if you look at the name itself, is deceptive, because there are 2-3 tribal groups, at least that I am aware of. There may be more from the Naga tribal who has officially put out communications, press release statements saying that do not misuse and mislead the word indigenous, because it does not include many of the indigenous groups. Rather, you are not indigenous. So somehow this narrative of indigenous, it has gone unchallenged. So this needs to be brought out. Number two, there is a YouTube channel wherein the Burmese Kuki Association's, I think the president, Henkol Sai Haukip. So he was the president in that article, in that memorandum submitted back in 1972. There is a YouTube channel where there is a church ceremony, that ceremony of him, I think back just 2-3 years back. So the question is, where has all these families gone? Have they become indigenous people? I'm not sure if this aspect is covered in the book. If not, I am happy to provide this information, if not already with you. But I felt this is a very important aspect, and this needs to be highlighted. Thank you.
Heritage ji, pranam aapko. I'm glad that you came here. This thing which we were talking about, 1967-68 wave of immigration, he's talking about that. In 1972, there was this letter submitted, and there were 1,500 Kuki families entered. With a conservative estimate, their population is estimated to be at least 9 to 10,000. And that was the wave he was talking about, who were granted finances. And the government knew it. 68 also, there is a governor letter, and they did not take any action. Thank you for highlighting that. And yes, many of these families actually enjoyed ST benefits in Bharat, and there are no evidences that they actually went back to Burma. So this is actually a huge problem. And Heritage Ji has also been active in Twitter a lot, posting proper facts and those things. You can also get lots of things. And Heritage Ji, yes, we are putting all of this in book. We are rewriting repeatedly as new info is coming, and we are also doing language-based analysis to identify, we have done already, exactly which Janajatis are doing the illegal immigration. So the illegal immigration aspect is a major part which is covered. And yes, regarding indigenous thing, we are also, one more thing I would like to say. 2022, there was a gazette notification number 309, which needs to be urgently challenged in the state. That gazette notification declares Kukis in scheduled tribes. That gazette notification tells that scheduled tribes of Manipur are automatically indigenous. Now go back to this 2002 gazette notification in the state. What does that tell? Any Kuki tribe is a scheduled tribe. So basically that declares any Kuki tribe as an indigenous citizen of Manipur, even if they come much later, yesterday or day before yesterday from Burma or Myanmar. So this is also a major legal discrepancy which has to be challenged, and this comes under the, what to say, I was telling, no, legislations being challenged as measures, these have to be challenged. But yeah, so this thing.
Thank you, Methi Heritage. Thank you very much for coming up. And to the audience, our next session is with Dr. Jayashree Saranathan, and the topic is the influence of Ramayana in Tamil culture, and it will be held in January 25th, 11 a.m. So, Vidyaji, if you don't have any more questions, actually, I'll read out the question by plural. What is the role of diaspora, and specifically the countries where they are? Do we have any insight into who would be the relevant politicians in those respective countries that are most likely to respond positively to the diaspora, please? So, your opinion, Vladimir.
I would say one thing in this matter, politicians, when we are talking about, I would recommend Vivek Ramaswamy and Rishi Sunak. Other than that, very few. Because most of these, we have to understand, the Western countries benefit a lot from this Kuki land. That is why I think Heritage Ji, if he was there, he would have told, they sent a lot of delegations. They wrote a big letter, the Meitei's plight, to the United Nations. It was extremely well formulated, and it had over 100 references. The reference section was thicker than the book itself, it was so well informed. But they did forget justice. They did not even get a fair narrative there. So why did they not get a fair narrative? Because it suits the agenda of them. So I would say the diaspora's role is a bit different. The diaspora's role here should be writing things and trying to get in contact with mighty organizations like Heritage you can contact. These are very good organizations which are working on ground. They are registered organizations with proper UPI IDs and other things and transparency. So maybe people can fund these people in relief camps who are suffering still. So these kind of things people can do. Maybe become their voice in social media and other things. Raise these things. Get some information. Maybe write articles. Maybe give them space in medias and different kinds of national and international medias, which due to the isolationist policy, they are finding it very difficult to connect with these things. In fact, English speaking, most of the media have stonewalled them out. The amount of fake news and outright lies which the media have peddled, it's unbelievable, including that infamous report by the Editors Guild of India, which the Supreme Court later judged, Honorable Supreme Court, that spreading fake news is not a crime, but at least they spread fake news. And the Press Trust of India was blatantly in support of them, that why did you put charge on them? These kind of things are blatantly going on. Statements of people with known anti-national agenda are being verbatim taken out and published as news in a lot of publications. Afrida Hussain, one of the top editors, was found to be, okay, I have to use the word allegedly, was allegedly found to be in a WhatsApp group of ITLM, the media cell of Kuki, which has been involved in statements like, if India does not give us separate administration, we'll get it on our own. So basically, you can understand the narrative of the media going on. So you can give them that also. That would be very helpful. A better diaspora can act as a bridge, better connection. Their isolation can be ended.
Thank you. I think we can conclude our session here. We have exceeded our usual timing by about 15 minutes, but it's all right. It's a very riveting session and very enlightening for the people who are listening, as we understand from the discussions and chats and all. So thank you very much, Vladimir ji, for joining us. And we wish you all the best with the book and all the efforts that you are doing. And may actually a lot of support will come to you in your way and be successful in what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Vladimir ji, thank you. Thank you so much. That was a riveting session, a mind-blowing, eye-opening session. Thank you. And Ankita ji for taking so much of trouble and effort for putting in all these details. And I'm praying that everyone else who gets to see the recording, they too will come to know what the real situation is. And like Ravi Shankar ji mentioned, that you get help, help starts pouring in from all directions. So awareness is the first step. And I pray that happens soon. Take care and all the best. Bhagwan keep you all safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. As long as people like you are here, there will always be a voice for them.